This is why I fight the fact that there are false narratives in the Bible, starting from the plagiarized story of creation from the Enuma Elish and Anunnaki scriptures. But let's fast forward in time. The biggest lie is that Mary Magdalene was a harlot in any way. In fact, she came from a noble family and had lots of money, just like her friend Esther. Esther would not have been friends with Mary Magdalene if they weren't at the same rank. It's just how things work. Now on to the fact that the book of Mary Magdalene, unlike the other apostles' books, were included in the Bible. Hers was not, and you know why? Because it didn't fit their narrative. Here we have the secret teachings of Jesus, where it's more a spiritual knowledge and not of this monotheistic God to worship. In fact, Jesus said not to worship. So let's move on to problem number 2 I have. The book of Mary Magdalene, they say it wasn't included in the Bible because it's an apocryphal book. It's one of the books that they can't prove the authenticity of. But hear me out. Let's say that there is a story that is being told mouth to mouth, father to son, generation to generation, and at a certain point, once the people learn to write, because it was a privilege that not everyone had before. Like up until a couple of hundred years ago, people didn't even go to school. Like it wasn't obligatory to go to school. So just think back in the day of when Jesus was alive and right after his death and his resurrection. Mary Magdalene moves to France. And that's not a myth because I made the video of how Mary Magdalene's relic of her skull is exposed in the Basilica in France. And you can watch that video. So if the church is saying this is Mary Magdalene's relic, then she moved to France. A lot of her teachings were oral teachings. That's what they did back in the day before they knew how to read and write. Mouth to mouth, stories were passed on. At a certain point, someone said, hey, I know how to read and write. We need to put this story down. We need to put it into a real book. So even if initially the patriarchy didn't want her teachings to infect or disrupt their narrative, later on in time, someone said, you know what, we got to put this information down because it's important. And that's what they did. No, it's not going to be at the same time period of the other apostles and their books that were actually put in the Bible. This came much later. Why? Because it was forbidden. It was forbidden knowledge. The apostles of Jesus were all in danger. They were afraid that what happened to him was going to happen to them. She fled. The girl literally had escaped to France, okay? So that's my argument on why I don't care when the book was written. I care about the knowledge it contained. In this book, she was Jesus's favorite. If you listen to other scholars that are expert in Judaism, they will tell you that by the age of 30, Jesus had to be married because that's what they did around that time. It would have been unnatural for him not to be. Who was the only woman always around him? Mary Magdalene. Who was the woman next to him in the painting of the Last Supper? Mary Magdalene. What? You're going to tell me that that's a dude? Yeah, no, that was Mary Magdalene. So she was never a harlot. She came from a noble family, a rich family, an important family, and was the favorite of Jesus, to the point that he taught her things that he didn't teach any of the others. Sounds like a girlfriend wife to me. Mary Magdalene was the first apostle. She had a feminist gospel, and she taught the Christianity that you haven't tried yet.